Hey, what's going on, GameLeap? How are we? This is Coach Cheese, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 10 best mid laners for patch 12.8, which will be hitting the Rift today, tomorrow, depending on where you are in the world. Now, this list does feature some new champions, and some of these are getting buffed in 12.8, and what we're also going to do, we're going to give you the rune page, the skill order, the summoner spells, and the items you have to go on these champions, so you know what to build on them if you are kind of new to them. But just before we do get into the video, one thing you guys have to do before you get into your next game is to download the Professor app linked in the description, because it allows you to quickly import the best rune page used from the best players in the world on the champion you're picking. You don't have to make the rune page, just one click of a button and bang, you're ready to go. But that's not all, because the app also allows you to scout your opponent, and the app will give you their stats, how well they play their champion, so you can know more about your opponent than they know about themselves. And the app also gives you an in-game overlay, so you can compare your CS and your kill participation to your rank or even challenger players like Faker. And there's a reason why 3 million people have downloaded this free application, guys. It's because it works. So get around it in Season 12. Those links are in the description. Now, starting off at number 10, we have Zoe, who is getting buffed in 12.8. And for a champion who's already doing very well, this might be quite scary. So your Q's mana cost is down by 10 at each rank, and you're maxing this first. Very nice. And your R's mana cost is down by 10 as well. So you can be a bit more liberal with these abilities, but still you're probably going to use your Q the same way you would before. So using your Q into ranged champions to get the priority, and into melee champions to pressure them for big minions, so cannon minions in particular. Now, the rune page you see on your screens, this is in high elo, so electrocute with treasure hunter, and running biscuit delivery and time warp tonic, and starting corrupting potion, very important. And as far as your build goes, make sure you go Sork shoes into Everfrost and then Shadow Flame. Yes, you can go Luden's Tempest, especially if you're very fed, because you will legit one-shot anyone, but Everfrost just helps you lock down enemy champions, and it's also really useful with your ultimate, because if you don't have your Sleepy Trouble bubble, if it's on cooldown, you're not the most useful champion, especially in team fights. Everfrost actually allows you to use your portal jump, which is costing less mana next patch, and then the Everfrost active. So this is very effective, and it's also nice for self-peel if you get jumped on yourself. And Shadow Flame for more magic penetration, and the HP, it does make you tankier and harder to kill. So Zoe is number 10. Now, number 9 on the countdown is Akshan. And this time around, we're not talking about the heroic swing max Akshan, we're talking about Avenger Rang max Akshan. And the reason this is good is because against ranged champions, it gives you the wave clear and pushing power you need to hit level 2 first and to clear waves and roam around the map. Also against melee champions, it's very useful because you can poke them heavily with your Q max. And as far as your items go, what's interesting at the moment in high reload is that people are loving Kraken Slayer. So by starting Longsword and then getting Noonquir into Kraken Slayer because of the lifesteal nerfs from a couple of patches ago, and then getting Berserker's Grease into Wit's End. Now, of course, if the enemy mid laner is an attack damage champion and they have a lot of attack damage on their team, getting Wit's End might be kind of troll. So you might want to swap this out for a Ginsu's. But the point is the Kraken Slayer rush Akshan with the on hit from your passive, and pair this with this rune page with press the attack and then taking resolve as well, which gives you the tankiness you need to survive those trades. He is a very scary dominant mid laner. He's number 9. Now, beating Akshan to number 8 on the countdown is a champion who isn't getting changed in 12.8, and for you Anivia mains out there, this is a good thing. So for Anivia, ever since the preseason 11 changes to her, where your Frostbite deals double damage even if your Q just clips an enemy champion, Everfrost going down to 2800 gold in this preseason, Archangel Staff going down to 2600 gold, everything is just so much better. More affordable, and the Cryo Phoenix herself as a champion is just so much more satisfying and rewarding to play. But one important thing, guys, on your screens right now is the rune page and taking Relentless Hunter. For Anivia, because you are kind of short range, the movement speed is incredibly valuable. You need this to survive and dodge the enemy champion's skill shots, but you also want this to get in range of the enemy champions. You're not a Xerath, you're not a Vel'Koz, you're not a Zoe, so you are somewhat limited in the range department, so the movement speed, it's essential. Now, coming in at number 7, let's say you don't want to play Anivia or a magic damage champion in the mid lane, or playing Talon, you'd be very wise to pick him, because to be honest, this champion's win rate in every single elo is above like 51-52%, so he's consistently OP. But why is that? Because Talon has been nerfed this season. Well, let's try to figure this out. So with this rune page, a W max, Ignite, and then with your items, Prowler's Claw into Lucidity Boots, into Ghostblade, all of these items, apart from the boots, I guess, have been buffed in recent times. Or they've just been made better for Talon. But to be honest, I think one of the big reasons it's not even on your screens. It's because of the teleport change in 12.1. So in the first 14 minutes of a game, people with TP can't actually TP to bot lane fights or Rift Herald fights, top lane fights, wherever the fights may be. This means that for heavy roaming champions from the mid lane, they are so much better. Because if you're playing Talon with your Assassin's Path, your playstyle pretty much, if you're not killing the enemy mid laner, is to shove waves with your Rake, your W, which you're maxing first, and then roaming to those lanes and to those fights in the jungle. So a heavy skirmisher like Talon is unreal at the moment because of the teleport change, and this will continue to be the case until something happens to him, so definitely consider picking Talon in 12.8. Now number 6, we're kind of following Talon, similar groove, but we're talking about an AP roamer, this being Rumble. And you might be like, why on earth would I pick Rumble in the mid lane? Well, look at these stats. This is in Master and Above, and it might not be the biggest sample space in the world, but remember, in Master and Above, people are going to be playing the game kind of correctly, not always, but most of the time it's going to be good. So these stats represent Rumble being played close to peak performance. So if this is the peak performance, why are we not playing him more? And the buff earlier in the season to your base armor, so it's now at 36, so it got buffed by 5, and you might think, well, most mid laners are AP mid laners, why does the armor matter? Well, think about it, you're a melee champion. Getting auto attacked by these champions, that's attack damage, but also against every attack damage champion. So Aurelia, Talon, Zed, Kiana, all of these champions you are better against. But just be a little careful into range matchups, guys. You really want to be taking your E first, because this will allow you to trade with them early on. And as far as your items go, pretty standard stuff with Sorc Shoes, Rocket Belt, Zhonya's, the magic penetration from those first two items, the movement speed as well from a Sorc Shoes rush, really useful for you to just shove mid and then roam, just like a Talon would, and then Zhonya's, because when we do overheat, we're just attack speed Rumble. Using the stasis, the active is going to allow us to buy time for our cooldowns to come back up, and then flame spitter everyone to bits. So Rumble number 6. Now starting off the top 5, we're staying with the roamers. I'm sorry, but that's just how the game is, guys. And this is Pyke in the mid lane, and ever since Riot buffed Pyke's Q's damage, so it's 100 at rank 1 and level 1, Pyke has really just dominated. Just like I mentioned for Talon as well, the teleport change means that for Pyke, who is an amazing roamer because of your Ghost Water dive, you are an incredibly scary champion when the enemy team doesn't know where you are. Now you might not have the pushing power of a Talon, but once you hit the mid to late game, honestly, you're even better. In the early game as well, when you run out of base, you can always think of going through lanes. CS doesn't really matter for this champion, so it might be a very cheesy way of playing, but it works. And you can see here via the win rates, these just validate Pyke in the mid lane. So he's number 5. Now thankfully for some of you out there, number 4 in the countdown is not a heavy roamer, thank God for that. But this is a champion just like lots of the others who has been buffed in season 12, and that's why Neeko is holding the number 4 position. And because of the buffs to your Q, your E, your W, and your hitbox, how can Neeko not be on this list? You're a very good all-around champion in the mid lane. The only thing you kind of lack though is a bit of range, and you are a little vulnerable to assassin mid laners, which is really why you're not higher up on the countdown. But still, because of all of those buffs, and because you're such a versatile champion, you can peel, you can engage, you can poke from afar, it's a very consistent way of playing. Just make sure as far as your runes go, just like a Nivea actually, to take Relentless Hunter. The movement speed enhances your roaming potential, and it's also really useful in terms of landing our skill shots and not getting hit by them. And as for your items, you're going exactly the same as Rumble. Sorc Shoes, Rocket Belt, Zhonya's Hourglass. Now Rocket Belt is really invaluable for Neeko because of the dash. This gives you the pressure you need with your Pop Blossom. It's a deadly combination, so Neeko number 4. Now starting off the top 3, the bronze medalist guys for 12.8, who is going to be surprised here because this is Yasuo, and because last patch his base HP got buffed and his ultimate's cooldown in the early game got reduced, this makes his laning phase stronger. This is when typically he should be weak. Of course he does have some good matchups, don't get me wrong, but for the most part Yasuo's aren't really going to get going until they're 0-10 at 30 minutes. So the fact that you have a stronger early game allows you to get to the mid to late game when you are very powerful. And even though Riot nerfed lifesteal, just because of the buffs to Yasuo himself, they have pushed him into OP tier, and this champion who's meant to have a high skill ceiling, I mean he still does, but he's way too easy to play. You can probably first time him in any elo and have an amazing chance of winning because he's just so overtuned at the moment. So Yas is number 3. Now the runner up to the best mid laner in 12.8, we've got to talk about Ahri, guys. And just like Neeko this season, she has been buffed, and even though she got nerfed a couple of times, doesn't really matter. This champion overall just deals more damage, and she has so many charges of her Spirit Rush in teamfights via takedowns. It's too broken, it's too OP. There are no weaknesses to Ahri. You can blind pick her, you can counter pick her, it doesn't matter. But if you are going to play Ahri, I've said this in a lot of videos, make sure to start with your W. Your Foxfire is going to prioritize the enemy champion, giving you a very strong level 1. And as for your items, make sure to go Everfrost, Sorc Shoes, and then Shadow Flame. Everfrost is a really nice item because the active allows you to land your charm, your skill shots, and a bit like Zoe, if you don't have your E, so your charm in Ahri's case, it gives you more utility so you can still be useful. Now Sorc Shoes we desperately need because with Everfrost you don't deal enough damage, so the magic penetration is a must, and that's also why we go Shadow Flame, which is a cheaper alternative to going Death Cap. So you might not deal as much damage, but it's still worth it because it is a quicker item buy. So Ahri is the runner-up, but who can beat her to the number 1 mid laner for 12.8? Well, this champion is definitely not going anywhere for 12.8, and this is little blue purple Gandalf Veigar, who has been the premier mid laner really ever since he got buffed in terms of his Q scaling. And even though he might have been nerfed this season in terms of his armor for the bot lane, he is still an unreal champion. He still brings the utility in terms of his event horizon, which you're maxing 2nd, second. Your Everfrost, once you get this will help you lock people down more, and it will complement your event horizon and your cage very nicely. Then we want to get Sork Shoes because we do like a little bit of damage when we go Everfrost first. Then follow this with Death Cap for exactly the same reason. You are ready to pop off. Just make sure in your runes to run Predator and then Ingenious Hunter. We want Predator's cooldown to be reduced. This is why we get Ingenious Hunter. Also nice with Everfrost too, because when you're popping Predator, sometimes you won't even need to use your event horizon to kill enemy champions. The movement speed is enough with the Glaciate active from Everfrost to lock them down. Your teammates come in and you clean house. So Veigar is the #1 mid laner for another patch, this one being 12.8. Let me know guys if you did enjoy the countdown and want these to continue. Leave a like down below. Any thoughts or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And until tomorrow's daily season 12 upload, this has been Coach Cheese. Boys.